Oh, sure.
Aloha, everyone. Good afternoon, nearly evening, and thank you so much for joining our Hawaii Economic Association special edition quarterly Pauhana Talk Story webinar. My name is Leslie Harvey. I'm the board president of the Hawaii Economic Association, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. While we are known for bringing economic education and information, today's event, the Surfing of Economics, is a different kind of economic education, a different wave than our usual set, you might say. Our quarterly events are typically limited to HEA members, but today's event has been open up to all. If it is your first time joining us, I hope that you enjoy it and consider becoming a regular member. If you are interested in joining us more regularly, membership is only $40 for the year. We are continuously aiming to provide exceptional value to our members. HEA members receive discounted event attendance at our monthly webinars, only $5 for members, and will also get a discount to our upcoming October conference, as well as additional perks like an invitation to our quarterly Pauhana Talk Story events like this one. And this year, we also kicked off event sponsorships. If you or your organization is interested in learning more about event sponsorship opportunities, please contact us either at info@hawaiieconomicassociation.com or on our website, hawaiieconomicassociation.com, by clicking on Contact Us. Thank you. Whether this time or you regularly attend our events, we hope that you'll continue to join us each month. Another member perk worth mentioning is our Q&A. It is reserved for HEA members. If you are not a 2021 HEA member, we ask that you refrain from posing questions in the Q&A. If you are an HEA member, please go ahead and access that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and you can type members will not be included. All attendees, however, can comment and upvote questions at any time in the Q&A screen. Our moderator today, Keahi, will solicit questions as time permits, prioritizing questions with a significant number of upvotes. As you saw, we enabled polls in this presentation. Your submissions are anonymous, and we're just having some fun with that one today. At the end of today's webinar, please take a few moments to let us know how we did. Before you leave, check the chat function for a link to our feedback form. All registrants will also receive this link via email. The event resources, including slides and the event recording, will be shared exclusively with HEA members who registered for today's event. And our event today, the economics of surfing, will take a deep dive, a duck dive maybe, into the impact of surfing on Hawaii and how surfing may evolve in the future. Now, I am absolutely no expert. I am an intermediate surf watcher at best. So I am so pleased to be joined by the true experts, George Kam, Wakai, and Jodi Wilmott, with moderation by Keahi Tucker. Now, to begin, Hawaii native Keahi Tucker was lured away from a successful career in network news by a South swell 15 years ago. He has since become a reliable and well-known anchor with Hawaii News Now and a surfing fixture at Waikiki and Diamond Head surf spots. A University of Hawaii swimmer and graduate, he spent 8 years working in television on the continent, including a stint in landlocked and surf-deprived Topeka, Kansas, with subsequent gigs in East Coast stations. Mahalo for being here, Keahi. I will turn it over to you. All right, there he is. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, Leslie, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. I appreciate that. Thank you. And aloha, everyone. This is an exciting hour ahead. Fun conversation to come. Let me start by introducing our panelists today. While his collection of advisory board positions, including that of chair of the Hawaii Tourism Authority Board, might suggest that George Kam spends a lot of time sitting, his favorite board meetings involve surfing in Waikiki. Spanning 5 decades, his career has involved all aspects of the surf industry, including boards, apparel, and accessories, and all form of markets, wholesale, retail, online. A graduate of Kamehameha Schools and the University of Southern California, George was named by the Retail Merchants of Hawaii as its Retail Employee of the Year. An avid waterman, his list of associations and organization contributions is longer than a good wave. Welcome, George Kam.
Hey, mahalo, Keahi.
All right, good to have you, man. Next up, the majority of Hawaii Senate District 15 borders the ocean. Wakai has represented that district since 2010 and has long been an enthusiastic supporter of surfing and how Hawaii can be the sport's epicenter. His political career began in the State House of Representatives in 2002, after he had worked in television news for 11 years in Guam, Saipan, and Hawaii. A graduate of the University of Southern California with degrees in journalism and sociology, he serves as chair of the Senate Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism Committee. He is the honorary consul for the Republic of Palau, and also sits on multiple nonprofit boards, including the Japanese Cultural Center. Aloha, Senator Wakai. Thanks for being with us.
Good to see you, Keahi. Thanks for having me.
All right. And our third panelist today, surfing and saltwater, are part of Jodi Wilmott's DNA. Born to Australian parents during their 5-year safari in South Africa, she's seldom been far from an ocean or its waves. Actively employed in the global surf industry for over 30 years, Jodi's held roles ranging from general manager of the World Surf League to independent contractor and consultant to several major surf industry brands. Through her own company, Ocean Promotion LLC, DBA Surfing Hawaii. She has worked closely with athletes, local communities, businesses, brand partners, and tourism organizations on 6 continents and remains open to Antarctica. She is mother to 3 surfing sons and lives on the north shore of Oahu. Welcome, Jodi.
Thank you, Keahi. Aloha.
All right, aloha to our 3 panelists. Thanks for being here, you all. So, and just to lay it out for all of our visitors and participants today, we're going to talk story for a little while, and be sure to submit your questions there. And toward the end of the hour, we'll do some Q&A. So get creative and vote for your favorite questions, because the ones with the most votes get asked. And I'll just start with this. I wanted to point out as a foundation for our discussion today that Duke Kahanamoku's birthday is 1 week from today, the 24th. Let's all remember that, because not only was he, of course, Hawaii's first global celebrity, our ambassador to the world, the father of modern surfing, 5-time Olympic medalist, he was, in a way, Hawaii's first pro surfer. He made a career out of it, traveling the world and sharing this sport with the world. And it all starts there, if you think about it. So we're so blessed to know of his legacy and celebrate still in Hawaii. Every time we drive past Waikiki, it's part of our culture here. And I think it's a big driver of what we have to share with the world. With that, let me start with George Kam. It seems to me you're at the tip of the spear at the HTA as far as promoting surfing and our culture to the world. Start by sharing your thoughts on today's theme.
I think, Keahi, mahalo for that question. First, we honor Duke and, even the guys behind me, Uncle George Downing and Wally Forsythe and all those who came. And today, just out at Magic Island, the great Ben Aipa was honored, out there. But I think, when I look at it, it's really what Duke was. It was such a great gift that it was just for Ali'i before, and he wanted to share it with the world. And I think really, how do we surf with aloha and share that with the world? And I think that was the essence. When you mentioned Duke, Duke had that favorite saying. He says, in Hawaii, we greet friends, loved ones, or strangers with aloha, which means with love. Aloha is the key word to the universal spirit of real hospitality, which makes Hawaii renowned as the world's center of understanding and fellowship. It says, try meeting or leaving people with aloha. I believe it, and it is my creed. You'll be surprised by the reaction. Aloha to you, Duke Paoa Kahanamoku. So I think the essence really is, how do we live with aloha and how do we surf with aloha? And I think the Olympics was such a great reminder. If you're out by Duke's statue, I don't know if you saw it, when Carissa was awarded, one of the things she wanted to do before she flew off to Mexico was to put the red coronation lei that she was given by the governor and the maili lei around Duke Kahanamoku, to understanding where our roots are. And I think that was really the essence of what Duke was trying to share. And we continue to share that today.
Well said, George. Thank you. Senator Wakai, from your perspective there at the legislature, how does this all relate?
Okay, I don't surf, I don't chase big waves, but I chase big opportunities. And I just see that surfing is a big opportunity that we've not long neglected. I mean, you mentioned the Duke Kahanamoku's birthday next week, and if my math is correct, he would have been 131 years old. And what did we do since that time to glorify, celebrate surfing? I argue we've done very little. When you think about California and Australia, they have celebrated, they are monetizing surfing. They both have surf museums. They both have competitive high school surfing. They both have surfing global surfing brands. We have nothing along those lines. And I just see that we should be driving and jumping on this wave of interest. And two things changed in the past few years. One, we saw it just last week with the surfing being the first time Olympic event. All of a sudden, the world who may not have been aware of surfing and don't touch the ocean, they're aware now. And the second thing is technology. Technology has allowed for us to build a perfect wave in a wave pool. Just 2 years ago, there was a first professional surfing event in the middle of a desert outside of Fresno, California. That means that surfing can now be taken to landlocked areas. You can surf in Kansas. You can surf in Switzerland, places that don't touch the ocean. So I think those two events, the Olympics as well as the technology for surf wave pools, really is going to change people's interest in surfing. And either we're going to continue neglecting what Duke provided us as a gift to the world, or we're going to jump on and get in front of this wave of opportunity and ride it to its monumental conclusion.
Thanks, Senator. you know, about the Olympics, I just want to point out really quickly how lucky they got to have that typhoon swell roll in and actually have good waves for the final that day. I'm not sure if the non-surfers out there understand how rare that is. And it was actually quite likely that Japan would have had 1 foot onshore slop for the Olympics, and it would have been a huge flop. So it was just amazing that it happened that week, and just a windfall for surfing around the world. And with that, I'll go to Jodi, bouncing off of what Senator Wakai was just talking about and his perspective as a lawmaker, that we haven't done a lot to promote surfing. You're an industry insider. What do you say to that?
Well, I think the first thing to be said about it is that I don't think anybody ever picked up a surfboard to make money. I think people picked up surfing to have quality of life, to really enjoy Mother Nature, to make friends of like minds, to be a part of our natural environment, and to do something that brings so much quality to life. And I think Duke Kahanamoku embodied that, to speak to George's introduction. And I think, you know, my Australian accent would let you know that I have Australian parents and I spent a fair bit of time growing up there. And Duke Kahanamoku introduced surfing to Australia, and it took off bigger than a brush fire. Same in so many other countries and cultures that he visited and shared with. And out of that developed so much enjoyment, so much passion, so much amazing travel and appreciation for our world and our oceans. And from there, it was, you know, quite a number of decades before a surf industry started to be born. And I know George knows this as well as anybody as well, but brands such as Quicksilver, Billabong, and Rip Curl, they emerged out of Australia. And there were other brands like O'Neill in America and different brands in South Africa that were emerging, new brands out of Europe like Oxbow. And these brands, again, were formulated by people who were meeting a new demand. They were filling a need for product that was appropriate for a somewhat new sport. And they became juggernauts in an industry and have provided so much opportunity. They gave birth to professional surfing. And all of this comes out of such a passionate community of people. And we have exactly that in Hawaii. We have that in so many countries with beautiful waves. And now, as Senator says, we have that even in landlocked deserts. People are experiencing and learning what it is to get that stoke of surfing. So, you know, I think ideas come out of passion, creativity comes out of unique experience and vision. And that really is where economic opportunity comes from as well.
Yeah, good point about that. I've been noticing in the Instagram age recently, all kinds of little brands popping up. It's so much easier for surfers to basically get their own brand started, sell it to their friends, and expand from there. And it seems to me you've got the huge companies, but a lot more small players out there these days. Could any of you talk about the economic part of that? Do you know of any studies that have been done or any numbers to support that discussion as far as how much of surfing actually translates into business opportunities and dollars?
I have a couple of statistics here, both on participation as well as economic impact. There's estimated 1.7 million surfers in the United States. Globally, it's 35 million. So that's a huge audience. In terms of how we monetize that audience, right now, surfing is a $7.3 billion industry because of perhaps the two factors I mentioned earlier. It's expected to grow into a $9 billion industry. So these are significant numbers, and Hawaii should be leading the charge on some of the economic benefits of surfing. But to your point, Keahi, you know, in Hawaii, we let natural evolution dictate how small brands could grow into bigger brands. Maybe we should start having DBED, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, really help that really entrepreneurial surfer or business person who wants to utilize surfing as a mechanism and help them, whether it's distribution, marketing, web sales, all of those things. That's where I think the state can come in to play a role in helping to grow people with great ideas and selling apparel or surfboards or anything associated with surfing.
Jodi, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have 3 sons that range in age from 12 to 22. And a lot of times, we're busy doing business, all people like us, and we talk about the next generation, but I see this generation that is so technologically advanced, so creative, so networked and socially connected with their peers. And this is starting so young now, the minute they have access to a screen. And I remember sitting in a meeting 20 years ago, and it was at the company Vans, which is, a skate and surf and lifestyle brand out of California. And the head of surfing at the time there said, we are going to look at kids right now who are 2 years old, and we are going to follow them, and we are going to be informed by them, and we are going to grow with them. And they were about a $600 million company. That I remember sitting at that table and thinking, I have a 2-year-old. I'm going to take that advice on board, and I'm going to watch what this child does all along the way and be informed. And I think it's so easy for people like us to feel like we're in business, we're so experienced. A lot of our experience now relates to nothing that is going to inform the future, because we are nowhere near technologically advanced as these millennials who are coming up. And their creative ideas and their ability to collaborate and just blow this whole thing up into something incredible. They're already doing it. They're doing it before they know that they're doing it. So to Senator's point, what we want to do, I think, with economic opportunity in Hawaii is bring together leaders like we have here. And there are so many, like all of those on the surfing committee for HTA, all of those out there in surf shops in Hawaii and behind brands like TNC and Local Motion that have been going for so many years, and start to be the incubator and the collaborator with a lot of these millennials who are coming through to help them find that structure, to find the distribution, to find the keys to some of that real fundamental production part of what the industry represents, but to allow them to layer on the creativity and drive the industry forward and show us how to go forward. I think our time of informing them on where to go and what to do, the mentorship is the other way around. That's the way I see it. I love to just interview and talk to and share with and engage with all of these young people coming up. And I think seeding some of these opportunities will benefit Hawaii, will create homemade brands, and will organically grow our local economy and a global economy in surfing as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I have 3 kids about the same age, and they are teaching me about brands and marketing and the new way of doing things, which is online. And that passed me by. I'm learning a lot from them. There's another aspect to this, and I think I'll throw out there for you, George, to talk about the infrastructure to support the economy of surfing. Just for the discussion's sake, I'll point out a few negatives, right? If one of the goals is to get people to come here and surf and enjoy the surf culture of Hawaii, they have to deal with the North Shore gridlock, the high cost of getting their boards here through the airlines. Maybe they go to Waikiki or some other crowded spots and they have angry locals yelling at them. There are negative aspects to it. I think that the mainstream Hawaii may not fully support surfing in a way that we all do. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, you're right on point. A lot of times people think of the Hawaii Tourism Authority as a destination marketing organization, but really, if you look at our shift towards Malama Ku'uhome, or caring for our island home, it's really about destination stewardship, and no more than it's more prevalent than surfing. When we had this lockdown, one of the best gifts the governor gave us, he locked down the parks, the beach, everyone was locked down except surfing, and you could really see the joy, so when we're ramping up and you see the crowds and how much it was compared to when they had it all to themselves. It's not necessarily where all the efforts about making it a great place to visit. The most important is making it a great place to live. And it's got to be community led. I mean, Jodi and me had great, deep discussions on the North Shore with the contest and everything else, and I think what the Triple Crown did, and Van's one of the best sponsors, they did last year with the lockdown, was they made it all virtual. And I would say that that's probably the future of surf contests per se. So we have a surf contest, it's limited to say 4 people out there. And if you're out at Queens, there might be 100 or 200 people at any given time. So I think it's really about the balance. As the Queen said, it's the razor's edge is the width of the blade of peely grass, but it has to be community led. It has to be making sure the residents are stoked, because if the residents are stoked, then we're going to have happy visitors. And what's happening in the surf community is very contentious and it's very aggro. You see that it's combustible. And that's why I think if we listen to what Duke said and we follow this more, it's really about surfing with aloha. But we have to share that. And if a local guy can't get his surf spot because we got 20 guys trying to pile in there, or people aren't skilled in surfing and we didn't learn the right way, it's going to be ugly. So to me, it's all about stewardship. How do we malama our surf sites? How do we ensure that we have the best ocean parks in the world? A lot of guys talk about promoting surfing to bring people here. We should have the best bathrooms, the best parking lot, the best, showers, the best surf sites, so that the community can enjoy that. And not necessarily only where tourists go, but where the community see that, wow, if we're really saying that surfing is important to Hawaii, we should make sure that it's a priority. I talked earlier about making sure every 4th grader learns how to swim, spent by the state of Hawaii. We used to sponsor the junior lifeguard, but the budget cuts took that away from us. And I wanted to make sure that every kid had an opportunity to be ocean safe. You see what's happening out at China Wall. Well, the surf break today, I pulled in 3 guys just out at Castles, were cleaned out. Boards were fine out there, broken leashes. So if we're going to welcome people, we got to be great hosts. And if we're going to be great hosts, we got to make sure we have great residents. And we got to have great residents. We got to make sure we're investing there, putting the resources so that the locals would be so stoked when Duke's Time and Old Beach Boys say, come on by, come, let me show you how to surf. Let's go enjoy this place together. Not where it's contestants and they're fighting and beating it out, just like what you and me see today. And I hope you got that south swell, because Browns at Diamond Head was great early this morning before the south winds came in. And Castle's about as good as I've ever seen in a while. So that's what my thoughts is. Let's make sure we're looking after the locals. Then it's going to be a great place to visit.
George, you surfed Castles this morning?
Yeah, but I caught some bombs. Some guys caught some donuts. I was with my brother, and he was on a hydrofoil. I was just on a stand-up. He caught one almost all the past Publix, Keahi, if you can imagine. It was that good this morning. But by 9 o'clock, the wind started to shift and got real ugly. But Browns looked epic, right at Diamond Head when we're driving over the cliff. So I hope you got out there. But it was ugly. Then I looked at Alamo on a bowl and it was breaking across the channel, if you can imagine that. So it was just a washing machine.
I'll tell you, my son surfed Castles. He said he caught one
yes.
off the tunas.
Yes, yeah. My brother sees them out there all the time with his hydrofoil. Yeah, so he rips. Your son rips, by the way.
Thanks a lot.
He's about as good an ambassador as we have. That's why I think Hawaii's future is in good hands. Like we were talking earlier about the businesses and the local businesses. I mean, these young guys are doing amazing things, and Hawaii is still the pico and the epicenter of all of that, even though people don't think so. But anything big, is happening out of Hawaii and surfing.
Amen. I did surf Kaiko's earlier, right before this, and actually the east wind kind of cleaned it up. It was pretty good.
Good for you. Kaiko's was probably the better spot.
Yeah. A few of the North Shore boys were out there too, which tells you something. Okay, you said something that interested me. First of all, the virtual surf contest, I thought that worked great. I mean, if you saw John's video from winning the Triple Crown this year,
and
that was next level.
The best surfing I've seen John ever. I said, wow, that's the future. And Jodi's right at the tip of the spear with the Vans Triple Crown. I think that's the future of surf contest. And you didn't take out a lineup. You were surfing with everybody else, and the best guys always catch the waves anyway. So you weren't like Hulk G blocking out a place.
The next thing I wanted to talk about, though, when we talk about bathrooms and nice roads and things like this, and Senator Wakai, you could chime in here. Look at Oahu's North Shore, the epicenter of surfing. Awful traffic. It's a tiny little town that for 5 months a year welcomes 2-3 times its population. I don't know, I'm making this up, but a lot of people, right? Think about the ski towns of the world. back in the 60s and 70s, ski towns were little valleys, mom and pop places. You had to work to get there, and the hardcore skiers would go. Look at them now, resorts, tons of people, but they have built out their infrastructure. A good ski town fits thousands of people on the mountain with the rides and all that stuff. I've heard people say Oahu's North Shore needs to go through some type of transition like that to basically be able to handle more people. Of course, that's a touchy subject. Keep the country, right? But it seems to me we're at a crossroads when you have thousands of people coming every single year to crash the party. Glenn, you first, Senator.
I think there's so many different facets to that question, Keahi. The first, for the North Shore folks on this island, their pain point with traffic. And part of that to me is due to the proliferation of Airbnbs all throughout that community. So as George and his team at HTA figure out how to, provide more resident positive sentiment, I think the obvious biggest pain point for the state of Hawaii, surfing or otherwise, is the proliferation of Airbnbs. And they're a big reason why there are so many folks that traverse the North Shore, as well as take away housing from people on the North Shore. But for people who are not surfers like myself, the negative impacts of surfing, as you mentioned, is mainly traffic. And I know that HTA is looking at providing shuttle service to the more popular beaches on the North Shore. Instead of having people drive their rented cars and having 40 cars there, why not get a shuttle service and have them park in a certain designated municipal lot and bring them there. And I think that is going to be helpful to helping mitigate some of the pain that locals have towards surfing and its potential growth. I think for the surfers, George touched on the pain point there, that they want to be able to surf, and COVID showed us that they loved being in the water. But I go back to, remember the technology, the wave pool, and Brian Keaulana and his friends are in the planning stages of building a surf park over in Kalailoa. And I think that if we have that done and maybe have more, we would have more opportunities for people to surf. Of course, they're never going to replicate what Pipeline and Sunset can provide. But if people just have an itch to go surfing at some of the castles, sorry, not a surfer, I don't know where you guys are talking about, but all of those cool places that you guys were just talking about, and they just have the surf itch, then maybe you can do it in a surf pool to remove some of the pressure off locals wanting to just ride a wave anywhere.
I was wondering about that wave pool project. Is it still going?
Yep. So I just had a meeting with Brian Keaulana about 2 weeks ago. They're putting together the financing. The state provided them a special purpose revenue bond. So the state is helping them with the financing of it. And from what I recall, he's looking at maybe 3 years down the road as to when he will open up that facility over by Kalailoa for Surf Park.
Very interesting. Jodi, as a North Shore resident, what do you think is the right balance for building out the town to handle all the people while keeping it authentic?
Look, a couple of caveats here before I speak further. One is I first came with my family to Hawaii in 1973. And after that time, I have traveled a lot in my life as well. So I have only been a resident in Hawaii for, 23 years, approximately 24, somewhere there. And so I don't want to speak for a community that is generations old necessarily. However, I always, it's a very volatile subject out here amongst the community, and I do work with a couple of different boards and organizations. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, that I know George and HTA and Mr. DeFries understand incredibly well, is that we are always on the defense here because we're talking about airlift into the state. And that's such a touchy subject. Hawaii doesn't have the ability to turn on and off the number of people who'll be filling seats and arriving every day. So we have well outgrown our infrastructure island-wide, statewide, let alone just the North Shore. And one of the things, I think you can look at it as a curse, but in having a single lane going in each direction, it kind of takes care of a lot of things itself. Does it create terrible traffic and jams? It does, until we sort out how many people are coming into the state and how we manage all of that. we're going to have those problems. But if we were to create, 2 lanes, 4 lanes, more access, we're really only going to create a bigger problem and way more intrusion for locals and just a trampling of the host culture, really. An interesting thing we experienced out here in the last year and a half is that we have had a huge influx of people that have moved to the North Shore because they now have the ability to work remotely. Now, it's a double-edged sword. On one side, we have the opportunity to embrace, productive and contributing people into the community. But these are also people who are going to take quite some time to understand the host culture and feel their way through how this community works, and communities around the island, because they're right next door to us. So there is just so much that has to be managed, and the malama ku'uhome that George is talking about, it really is the foundation of let's work out how we move forward. Really, Hawaii should only be letting in as many people, and we should scale business to the number of people that we can really host effectively and in a quality way, and that we have the infrastructure to service. Do you know there's less than 300 dedicated parking spots on the North Shore? And Keahi, I hate to tell you, but your numbers are so way off. Because we have hundreds of thousands of people arrive to this state every month. Out of that, way more than 50% that come to Oahu do a Circle Island. Almost everybody does a Circle Island trip. And you can watch the wave arrive on the North Shore around 10:30 every morning and exit either, starting from about 3:30 till after the sun sets, and they've captured the photo and the selfie. It's so predictable because they check out of their hotel in the morning to do their Circle Island. Half go this way, half go that way, but all of them come through the North Shore. And there's less than 300 dedicated parking stalls. We've got deplorable restrooms. And on Main Street in Haleiwa, the only public restrooms you can find are McDonald's. I'm grateful that they keep the door open. The North Shore Marketplace has about 7 restrooms. And then one down the other end before you've got to go to Ali'i Beach Park. Now that for tens of thousands of people a day is unbelievable. And I mean, you could go on and on, but my point really is that the infrastructure cannot support the number of people that are interested in being here. So we've got to kind of close in on the problem from both ends. How many people are coming? What infrastructure and supportive network can we provide for them? And I hope we can meet in the middle somewhere with all of the great minds that are here in the state to work this out. And I love where Mr. DeFries is going with it. I really do. It's like, pull the reins and let's really understand what we're doing.
Yeah, I severely underestimated my my numbers there. What I hear from you is that there's a real disconnect, in the whole idea of surf tourism and all this. So many people want it, not enough people, or we don't have the infrastructure. And these are far issues. There's a big gulf in between them. In the middle, you have all kinds of people just doing their best to make a buck, because on the North Shore, people set up their own parking lots. They set up their own food trucks. They're selling fruit on the side of the road. They're making a buck, permitted or not. All the Airbnbs out there, they're doing what they can. And that too is part of the economy. George, the question for you is, are you picking up a consensus with this whole movement from the HTA recently to dial back on the tourism and just reassess where we are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody, you ask your kids and everything, about what's important long-term, and they would all agree, but it's really about shaping towards a Pono traveler, but we also need Pono locals and Pono businesses. When you talk about this illegal activity, Chair Wakai is absolutely right. I mean, you'll see it at our next board meeting, but it's a full court press, because if you look, we actually haven't added any more hotel rooms in the past few decades. The big proliferation of people came from the 7 million, 10 million was all vacation rentals, whether legal or illegal. Now we're all for staying in legal vacation rentals, but looking at these things, and then on the North Shore, the great thing, like I said, it's got to be community led. And we had meetings out there. And I actually took John DeFries and Mike McCartney and Kalani Ka'ana'ana out to North Shore. We met with, Kathy Pahinui and Sean Quinlan, and we had meetings with Gil Rivera and, Heidi Tsuruyoshi. So talking to the leaders there, because we're going to need their kokua too, and find solutions that's community-led. And we have some great things that Chair Wakai kind of mentioned or alluded to, but it's really going to be, how do we make it so it's a great place to live? I think that's really the quest, right? How do we improve the quality of life for all the people of Hawaii, especially the locals and the local community? And if we do that right, it's going to be a great place to visit. So it's just really the essence of Malama Ku'uhome. And what is our kuleana? Everybody thinks HDA is the solution or the government's the solution. It's a collective existence of all of us to share the values of Malama Ku'uhome, and our kuleana of taking care and being great stewards of our place. And I think really that's the essence of Duke. We look about aloha aku, aloha mai, in giving love, we receive love, and malama aku, malama mai, in caring for others will naturally be cared for. So it's really the sister of aloha is malama. And that's why you see us talking about it so much, and John DeFries, but more about talking it, we have to live it, and it has to be done by actions. And we know it has to be done with community. It's not guys at HDA telling everybody what they need to do. And we had great things. And I got to tell you, the community on the North Shore is completely different from the community on Kauai at Haena and what we did at KA Beach, working with the people out there. And I think you see some good successes. And it's an all-time thing. It's not a sometime thing. So it's constantly engaging with the community. Same for Maui and all the other islands and Hawaii Island. But I think when it's community-led, when we're really actively listening to them and finding solutions, like Jodi's saying, finding that balance, because no tourists not good, too much tourists not good. And I would counter, it's not even the amount of tourists, it's how we're taking care of them. And we want to be great hosts. So I think that's the essence when you hear about Malama Ku'uhome, caring for a beloved home.
Yeah, what I hear from all three of you is finding the balance. And George, I wonder, how is the HTA going to promote this new idea, the campaign? I've heard a little bit about it, but not a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a promotion. It's the way we live. I think our destination management action plans that you're seeing is probably the beginning of that you're seeing. There are campaigns, but we're not looking like it's a one-time promotion. We're really trying to change the trajectory. We call it the moment of kuleao, where things are changing. So we have a gift right there. And Kahuina is like the intersection of where we're at now. And once we start shifting towards community-led and really listening to the community and, taking ancient wisdom from our kupunas from before with modern technology, there's things you can do technology-wise. You're seeing them in terms of how we're charging and surging and what they're doing in Hanamo Bay and other things. Shuttles, we're working towards all hydrogen or electric shuttles to move people. So you can still visit the North Shore and the jump on, jump off, but you're not taking all the cars on the road. So there's solutions that collectively, you got a lot of great minds out there. And I think the problem is right now there's a sentiment of cynicism and divisiveness. And really, I think if we go back to Etipilahi Paki and the Aloha Creed about Akahai and Lokahi, Olu Olu, Ha'aha'a, and Ahonui, and understand that we have a gift, and that the world will turn to Hawaii because Hawaii has the key towards world peace. And that's really aloha. So if we can live with aloha, if we can surf with aloha, if we can have great, healthy conversations like this, I think we can find the pathway forward. I think it's right there. It's not a closeout set. It's a perfect wave that's lining up, but it looks kind of gnarly. But if you keep paddling, I think we're all going to catch that wave and ride it together.
All right, George, you're on fire, man. I like it. Senator Wakai, he spoke about Haena being successful, Hanauma Bay. Can you tell us what other actions are in the works, plans for the state to do things, manage destinations like that?
Certainly. George is really good at framing where we need to go. But the next question has to be, how are you going to operationalize and effectuate some of the really bold and smart initiatives that George mentioned? I think one of the greatest tools that we're going to have is having a statewide park management system. We've needed this for as long as we've had parks here. And just for an example, last year, 2019, DLNR brought in about $2 million in revenues from parks, parking and admissions, mainly like Diamond Head, but then sometimes Manoa Falls and other areas. This year, because of legislative changes allowing them to increase admission charges and parking charges, they're going to bring in $15 million. So we went from 2 million in 2019 to 15 million. So we can see that people are willing to pay for to go up to Diamond Head. Before it was $1 for non-locals to go to Diamond Head. Now it's $5. Parking was $10, now it's $25. So people are still going to come no matter if we raise the price. And using that lever of having to manage our parks through a statewide reservation system, then we can say this many people can go to El Nido, this many people can go to Akaka Falls, this many people, and price it accordingly. And when there's less interest, we lower the price. When there's huge interest, we raise the price. I mean, government has to start acting like a business to help manage where people are going. And I know some of the chat questions are talking about the dereliction of responsibility for keeping up our infrastructure, our trails, as well as our restrooms. And I can tell you that to me, it's not HTA's responsibility to keep a toilet flushing in Haleiwa. It's DLNR's responsibility to do that. So now that we have this management tool, which will, exponentially increase the amount of revenues for DLNR, then it's DLNR's kuleana to keep everything spotless as well as functioning in the future. So George and John DeFries have set up a fantastic framework for the future. It's kind of our responsibility legislatively to figure out how we're going to make that goal a reality. And I think that the statewide park management system is a very good first step in getting to a better place.
I want to encourage our viewers to send in some questions, and I'll read this one from Nikos. How can the global surfing industry, tourist authority, and our state government do a better job of recognizing and protecting surfing as a Native Hawaiian cultural resource? To me, what stands out in that question is thinking of surfing as a Native Hawaiian cultural resource. I'm not sure a lot of people do think of it that way. George, you certainly do. I think you appreciate that. But how do we get everybody to think of it that way?
I'm going to jump in there, Keahi. I think it's a great question, and it's one of the real motivations of forming the surfing committee under HTA, bringing a group that is mostly Indigenous people, but all of them with different backgrounds in the surf industry from Hawaii. And, there's a lot of minds there, and a lot of these people also are very globally traveled, and they're also very connected with different aspects of industry as well. And that's one of the things that we're trying to work through is how can we start to influence that? Right now, it's a matter of like videos to help inform people about how to surf at the surf breaks, not so much how to stand up and ride a wave, but etiquette, how to conduct yourself in a lineup, how to demonstrate the level of respect that Hawaii commands in a lineup. And for the industry, there's some really great local organizations that we partner with a lot now. Dwayne DeSoto's wife, Malia, has a really great company that we've engaged for a number of years now in putting together opening ceremonies and making sure that it is culturally appropriate, that it is done by local people and really does demonstrate what is important in the host culture to show through surfing events. We talk to them always in community give back programs. We incorporate a lot of things. Dwayne DeSoto, again, is another example of with his Nakamakai organization of really bringing those grassroots people, organizations, and opportunities together. So surfing events, I think, an event just as an event is pointless. You can put on events all day long and all you're really going to do is squeeze something dry. But if an event is a platform to bring other pieces to the table, if you are showcasing grassroots organizations like Nakamakai on a daily basis in what you're doing, if you are showcasing local shapers and manufacturers in what you do, if you are putting on skate days and educational days for local kids and schools, now that's when an event is a good thing. And we have a really long-standing season, both North Shore and South Shore. You've got 4 to 6 months of waves and events that you can really share that around and provide that spotlight, talk through hours and hours of broadcast and integrate what's important about local community. Partner with Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii and groups like that. So yeah, that's only been going on for, I would say, the better part of 10 to 12 years that I've been involved with seeing that happen. but it's a start, and it has brought so many people together, and a lot of them are on that committee and starting to try to find those first pieces to build upon, to really bring more to the table. And look, an event just for the sake of calling someone a winner, count me out. I'm not interested in that either. We need to do more than that for local community and opportunity.
Yeah, you make some great points, Jodi, and not only Dwayne and his hui and other people like that, but Bishop Museum put on that great exhibit about surfing and the history of it and things like that. There has been an increase, I think. But George, I'm also on the yin and yang of this. I'm thinking about Waikiki as our perfect example of where it all comes together, right? We had a changeover from some of the old Beach Boy companies to some new companies recently, and I'm sure you've heard it out in the lineup. The surfers aren't too happy about it. It seems that there isn't a real connection with the old timers telling the visitors where to go and how to surf. So you have first timers getting in the way of the more experienced people, and there's just a general loss of knowledge, beach knowledge. And it's a shame. I think you could even dig deeper and say a loss of culture there, a beach culture that is sort of a generation has gone now, where we were linked to the past for many families. You can talk about that and how that, I think, is kind of an example of the bigger picture of the non-surfing and surfing world just not connecting.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. I actually if I'm not surfing, I actually walk through Waikiki, pay tribute to Duke every day, and you can see that whole, and how much it's transformed quite a bit. And you can talk to the old timers, from, to me, the best is Didi Robella. I mean, direct descendants of Duke and what they're doing as Beach Boys. You have, Tony Moniz and his Ohana, the good things. But I think it's a deeper thing that we need to look. And I think if we really get back to, like I said earlier, to Malama, to surf with Aloha, to really work through it, because it's again with DLNR2 and the blue cards and the criteria. I mean, it changed from when you really have to be a great waterman to get a blue card in order to give lessons, to kind of, it's like the Wild Wild West out there right now. And it's really combustible. Plus you have those who aren't even on beach stands. So let alone the guys on the beach and guys coming across the street, and who's certified, who's equipped, who really represents the very best of the Aloha spirit in sharing Hawaii with the world through the surfing, and I think we have to reinvent and reimagine that whole thing, kind of do a reset back and then look to what was there before. And like I said, we still have them there. The old time Beach Boys, the ones you see behind me, yes, those guys have passed, but their knowledge, their mana'o is still there. And I think that absolutely connects. When you talk about what surfing really is, yes, we have some world champions, but it's really about what it gives to your spirit, to your soul. So it's a lot deeper. And then, once you catch a wave, only a surfer knows that feeling. And that stays you forever and ever. People come back to back and then share that wherever they are. So it's really, I think, a great opportunity. We almost have to run into the reef, which is kind of how I look at Waikiki. We basically ran into the reef with all these things. And it's a great time to bring everybody together and say, how do we want to do? If we want to be the best in the world, and Waikiki is kind of like the Pico, it's our biggest fish pond that feeds all of Hawaii. What should it look like? What should a surfing experience out in Waikiki, and also most important, a canoe experience or a catamaran experience or the beach services? When you look at how much umbrellas there and the beach chairs and everything, I think we'd be hard pressed to say, wow, this is the very best that Hawaii has to offer. So I think it's a great opportunity to go revisit those things. And believe me, that's something we've had discussions currently and with the city and county, because a lot of that's city managed, in terms of how can we reinvent and reimagine Waikiki so that when you are out there with your kids, you'll be stoked. And then when a visitor comes, they're stoked too. And knowing that we're not competing against each other, that was the original sense of the Aloha spirit, was the Beach Boys, finding the tourists and making sure they're stoked. And that was all out of Waikiki Beach. But we almost kind of lost that. It's still there, not as much as before by far, but I still see that spirit. I still get that twinkle when I see some old-time Beach Boys really giving their best aloha to the guests that come there.
Ed Dascoli has been asking some questions on the chat, and he's interested in the surf schools that are unregulated on the North Shore. We have a bunch on the South Shore as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ed's right on point. Or Jodi, you can weigh in too, but we got to take care of that. and we got to make sure we do things pono. But Ed, you're right on point, from what's happening, and we got to do a full court press. And we're going to make it a great place to surf. We have to clean up all the unregulated ones or getting them regulated so they can be great ambassadors out there. Jodi, you go ahead, because you're right on the shore. And aloha to you, Ed. It's been a while.
Exactly. That's the first thing I wanted to say was aloha to Ed, and welcome, Ed. You're one of the people that really does have a lot of experience and intelligence to share, and you have done more than your duty on so many boards and community organizations over decades that I've observed. And you ask great questions. I think George brought up something that's very interesting, and it actually bridges two questions that you have, Ed. One of them is thoughts about surfing as an official school sport. George brought up also school swimming, and then the surf schools. There is a perfect opportunity right there to bring together a ton of local education, people who are going to be in the water every single day of the year, most days of their lives, as a front line, not only of Aloha George, first and foremost, but of education, of life-saving, and of sharing the right cultural values and principles that the state has educated them with. So instead of just having a surf school, whether regulated or not, I think you can be shut down straight away if you don't have a permit. And the way to get a permit, you should have to go through approval as a surf instructor, not just that you're certified to save lives or know how to surf, but do you understand the cultural values that are most important to Hawaii? Do you understand sort of the guiding principles of where the Hawaii Tourism Authority is trying to go to educate people in the right way? And are you qualified not just in bringing 20 boards down to the beach and catching waves, but in sharing why you do what you do in the water, how you do what you do in the water, and how you take that away with you on land and beyond Hawaii? These things are so important, and it's a front line of thousands upon thousands of people who can really be out there guiding. Because George, how many people in the lineup every day that we're out there, and Ed can speak to this too, he's out in the water all the time. You're instructing people one way or another, whether it's on etiquette, safety, a tip that's going to help them have more fun, pick up the litter on the way out, those sorts of things. Like, you are the front line. And if we're teaching kids to surf in school, teaching kids to swim in school, now they know how to be safe in the ocean. Now they become part of the front line with the instructors and so forth. So we have an army of people that can do this job, and we have not yet connected the dots to bring the formula together as to how we mobilize those people to really just be a wave out there making this happen. So Ed, thank you for that.
Bingo, connecting the dots on so much of what we're talking about. That's the hard part. We're running out of time here, but I'll end with you, Senator Wakai, as our state person here. You are now a member of our surf community, and we are depending on you to go back and teach all the non-surfing lawmakers there what it's all about. So Ed followed up here with a comment saying, problem as with any regulation is funding, enforcement, and who will be responsible. And you could say that about all the things we've talked about. So how do you make it happen? If you could just offer your final thoughts on how we all make this happen from a state perspective, because it does involve bureaucracy.
Well, first of all, I would love that idea of regulating the surf schools. And, DCCA, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, regulates cosmetologists, realtors. So Jodi, George, and Ed, let's go work on figuring out what are the parameters for certification for someone to be a licensed surf school in the future. So, but to your question, Keahi, I think just the fact that, this organization, HEA, is even having a discussion about surfing, because you would not think of this as kind of a business driver. I think it shows that we're getting traction, that the surfing community is kind of getting eyeballs and interest from other sectors of the community. And as we try to talk about glorification, celebration of surfing, it has to be more than the four of us on this call. We need a wave of interest from the mainstream community, whether you like the water and you know where Castles is or not. We need to grow that base of excitement, and I think surfing is a wonderful catalyst for us to get all of that done. So really, I don't have a magic wand, but I think the fact is that we're getting a lot more interest than we have in the past is going to pay handsomely in the future as Hawaii really becomes the epicenter, positions itself as the epicenter of global surfing.
George, your final thoughts?
You know, I'm just stoked that you had this opportunity, but my final thought is when you go out surfing, give 3 waves to everybody before you even catch your first wave, and surf with aloha. And I think if we start going back to the original instructions of Duke, that there's always another wave for us out there, and really be a great ambassador inside and out of the water, I think we're well on our way. You know, I'm excited about the possibilities, and I'm going to do everything I can from my role at Hawaii Tourism Authority and being in the industry for over 5 decades to really ensure that people can surf with aloha every day, and that we look after our local community to ensure that they can be great hosts for the visitors who come here. Mahalo, Keahi.
Mahalo, George. And Jodi, final thought?
I would say when you travel the world and people ask you where you're from and you say Hawaii, everybody's face lights up. And everyone knows that Hawaii is the epicenter of surfing, the birthplace of modern day surfing, where all the amazing waves and events and athletes are, where great brands like XL, thank you, Ed, came from. And I would say everything exists. And as surfers, we can be very casual. We can just go with the flow way too much. And it does take coming in from the waves for a little while to help get the sleeves rolled up and connect the people who can connect the dots to make this happen. It's an island. We know everyone. We know who can do everything we need done. And we just got to put them together.
Great points, all of you. And I'll end with my final thought, which is that life is change and Hawaii is always changing, and we just keep paddling, you know, and eventually we'll get somewhere. So big mahalo, Jodi, George, Senator Wakai, thank you all so much. Great discussion today, and to all of our viewers as well. And I'm going to turn things back over to Leslie Harvey now for our closing. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hello, Nui Loa, everybody, for joining us today. And a very special thank you to our panelists that we had on, Jodi Wilmott, George Kam, Glenn Wakai, and moderator Keahi Tucker. Such an insightful discussion, and those final thoughts were really something. Thank you so much. As many of you know, HA is a nonprofit organization. Besides our student intern, we are all volunteers, and we want to thank you for tuning in and continuing to support our efforts. We hope that what you learned today has been valuable. We will be announcing our annual conference soon, which will take place in early October, so be on the lookout for that information. Attendees, please take some time to provide your thoughts on today's event via the feedback form. That link is in the chat, and it's also here on the screen. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to complete, and we really do review these, we look through these, and we incorporate suggestions through discussion. So please take some time to complete that. If you registered, you will also receive the link by email. HEA members will receive the materials from today's webinar and the event recording. I want to give a big special thank you to our intern, Sierra Brewer, for the tech support and promotion coordination. A big mahalo to our VP of Marketing and Membership, Paul Migliorato, and HEA Board Director, Jennifer Nakayama, for coordinating this fantastic, unique economic event. Mahalo to returning attendees and those who are joining us for the first time. We strive to make our events relevant and beneficial to Hawaii's very diverse business community by tackling topics that are pertinent and breaking them down to make them accessible to a broad audience. We hope that you found this to be the case today, and we look forward to your feedback. Mahalo for your time and attention. Aloha.